Hello people, I'm Data from JGX and I want to present you guys an idea to rebalance the whole system, LRMs, ECM, radar deprivation, NARC, and AMS. Why? Because I think that we have problems with the way in which these systems operate right now. What problems? First, the LRMs themselves are too situational. In some occasions, in some scenarios, they are too strong. In other scenarios, they are too weak. And then the problem is that the way in which ECM works, the presence of ECM itself invalidates a lot of other chassis. Like, look at how few ECM mechs there are compared to the amount of chassis that you can use. Mech variants that you can use, and how many ECMs there are actually on the battlefield. On the battlefield, there are at least 2-3 ECM every 12 mechs, so around 20, 25, 30% of the mechs on the field have ECM, but the amount of mechs in the store that have ECM is way less than that. On the other hand, imagine how many mechs are actually getting completely invalidated because of the LRMs. So what I want to do is make LRMs less strong when they have no counters and make them less famine when there are too many counters. So let's analyze the situation step by step. First, when LRMs are too weak, map design reasons. There is nothing we can do about that. Like, it has to do with map designer. Maps like Solaris City, they shouldn't exist because they just delete certain playstyles on purpose. The idea, no game designer, no game dev should shit on a specific playstyle on purpose. If you are like that, you're just not worthy of being a game dev. I don't know what to say. Like stuff like, okay, I want to create this map because LRMs should not be used. I want to create this map so that long range shall not be used. I want to create that other map so that brawling cannot be used. We cannot choose our mechs after we see the map. So we should not be put in the conditions where we just see the map and Alt F4 and go do other stuff because my mech can't do shit on that map. Unfortunately, map design, we can't do shit. Second problem, when there are too many AMS on the battlefield. Now, AMS. The point is that one AMS doesn't do anything. Even multiple individual AMS don't do anything. The problem happens when there are many Corsair or Kit Foxes, like a couple of Corsairs and a Kit Fox together. The way LRMs work right now, you can take a Fafnir, 4 LRM-20s, and one Corsair by itself is not able to delete it. You need roughly 2 Corsairs to completely shut down one LRM boat. So it's completely random. When there is too much AMS, LRMs are bad. When there is no AMS, LRMs are too strong. ECM spam, same thing. You have games where there is one ECM, and then games where there are like 5-6 ECMs. The other problem, and this is a problem because of the ECM bubble range, the fact that one ECM can cover multiple mechs. The other moment when LRMs are too weak is when people equip radar deprivation 100%. Because you can have all the target decay you want, but if your enemy has radar deprivation 100%, as soon as he goes to cover, you will lose the lock instantly. So it doesn't depend on your sensor skills. You just lose the lock instantly. And this is, again, another cancer mechanic that in some situations will make LRMs too weak. Now, let's see when LRMs are too strong. The point is that when you have a fast mech, a pseudo light, a medium, and you have agility, and you're also small, most of the times you are able to see that you're getting lurmed and move to the closest cover, because if your mech is small, there is actually a lot of cover, and then you're fine. But the problem is that when a mech is big and slow, by the time you hear warning, incoming, you already lost a torso. Because the LRMs are to travel too fast, and those slow mechs don't have any chance of reacting in time and reaching a nearby cover. Because for them, the LRMs travel way too fast. The problem here is that on those kind of mechs, the big slow ones, no matter what you do, you have some limits that are related to how fast your mech moves. And you feel at times that no matter what you do, no matter your skill, no matter how fast you react to move to cover, you get lurmed to death anyways, because the mech is too big, the mech is too slow, and doesn't move to cover in time. So this is a point that I want to underline. Imagine how many big slow mechs are actually completely invalidated by the fact that you cannot use them, otherwise you get lurmed to death, and that's it. And that's why people spam a lot of ECM, because they feel that if they don't do that, they just get LRM'd. Another moment when, again, LRMs are too strong, where nobody is running AMS, when nobody is running ECM, and when NARC is in your team. NARC is another factor. Now, I want to present some solutions. I'd like to underline that all of these solutions could work individually if implemented on their own. But I am 100% confident that they should be implemented all together. The first positive change is that on one hand, you address radar deprivation at the same time of addressing target decay. What happens with this change? It happens that most of the mechs, those 99% and more of the mechs, don't have radar deprivation quirks, so they will be capped at 65% maximum. At 65%, at 75% maximum. At 75% maximum, it won't be possible to make your enemy lose the lock instantly and get. So this is something to avoid frustration from the perspective of the learners. They won't instantly lose the lock as soon as the target goes to cover, even with 100%. But on the other hand, target decay reduction. Target decay is a buff to how long your sensors will keep track of the enemy after he left the line of sight. So with this reduction, if the enemy has little amount of radar deprivation or no radar deprivation, he won't stay locked forever. That is instead what happens now. If you have full target decay and your enemy has no radar deprivation, he will stay locked forever and keep getting lurmed to death forever, even if he is in cover. So I'm trying to make these extreme mechanics less extreme. So less feast or famine. Second change, quirks. The problem of AMS is that the Cauldron repeatedly nerfed indirectly AMS by buffing missile HP. So how many AMS hits a missile can take before getting destroyed by AMS. They buffed the health of the SRMs, of the MRMs, of the streaks, of the clan LRMs, and so since that health actually impacts only on AMS. In fact, they nerfed AMS. But the problem is that one AMS is and was completely dogshit. One AMS won't stop anything, and it's very, very weak. You need at least 8 AMSs to completely cancel one Fafnir LRM boat. So just one won't do anything. The problem comes when there are many Corsairs or Kit Foxes together on a team. What am I going to do with this change? Not much, but at least is making the AMS less dominant on one side, but also the LRM boats less dominant when there are no AMSs. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this. If you go in the store, Corsair 7A with the 4 AMSs, it has actually quirks on those. You could make that AMS spam less dominant by removing Ionosphere AMS range 5% and by changing that 10 range into 10 energy range and 10 ballistic range. So it doesn't apply. You don't have 15 range on AMS. Same thing could be done on the Kit Fox. Remove clan AMS range, remove clan AMS rate of fire, change the generic range quirks into ballistic and lasers and PPCs and whatever, so they don't apply to AMS. On the other hand, you need somehow to remove the velocity from the LRM boats, because what makes LRM boats cancer is the velocity. I will never have enough of repeating this very fundamental concept. It's not heat, it's not the damage, it's not the arc, it's the velocity. Because by the time they start, and then you get hit, you don't have time to react, and you get hit anyways. The problem is that the best LRM boats around, Fafnir 5E, has velocity 10%. Then stuff like this, 5 LRM 20s, you get again velocity 10%. Stuff like this, another super LRM boat, 4 LRM 20s, LRM 15, LRM 10, you get 10 velocity that could have been, I don't know, if you wanted missile bay, SRM velocity, ATM velocity, ballistic velocity, but not blanket velocity. And then another velocity here, this is 15% velocity. It could have been, again, SRM velocity. So on one side, reduce the cancer quirks on the AMS boats. On the other side, reduce the cancer quirks on the LRM boats to balance it out. Then the third proposal, the NARC. What's the problem with NARC? NARC is a very difficult role. You don't get rewarded enough in terms of CBILs and match score at all. This is problem on one side. Problem on the other side, when you get narked, you stay narked for too long. Narc is a death sentence. So balance the extremes. Make the narc play more rewarding in terms of incomes, but at the same time, reduce the beam, the signal duration. So when you are narked, you stay narked for less. And then this is the final proposal that should be implemented. The problem of ECM. ECM itself, like on one side, LRMs invalidate a huge load of mechs that just, you don't take them because you know that if you take those mechs, you're gonna get lurmed to death. You know that. So you're not gonna take a non-ECM direwolf Because you know that on a direwolf, if you don't have ECM, you are food for LRMs. You're not going to take whatever Kodiak for the same reasons. You don't take a Marauder 2 without the ECM because you know that every time you take it, again, you're food for LRMs. You can buff those mechs as much as you want, but the problem is still that if you don't take ECM on those mechs, you get out of your dropship and you get LRM to death every fucking time. Or killed by a light in the back, but that's another problem that I will discuss in another video about a possible agility pass. But again, if LRMs invalidate on one hand a lot of mechs, it's the same for ECM. ECM invalidates a lot of mechs as well, because it's so strong that you have to bring it, especially since LRMs are so strong as well. So nerf the two things that are two faces of the same metal to make them less powerful in the extremes. ECM is a problem for alarmers because it has a large bubble shield. So ECM will cover not only your mech, that just 1 ton, 1.5 tons of equipment will cover every mech in 120 meters range from your mech. It's too much for just an equipment that weighs 1 ton or 1.5 tons. By reducing the range of the ECM bubble, you let that ECM cover less mechs. So when there is 3-4 mechs with ECM, those ECM mechs will be able to cover less allied units. So it won't look like, hey, I can't lock anybody because 4 ACMs are actually shielding all the enemy mechs, the entire enemy team. That won't happen anymore. But in exchange for this, you make LRMs less cancer when there is no ECM at all. What you need to nerf on LRMs is the velocity. LRMs became cancerous because of the buffs that Chris made in 2019. He kept rising and rising and rising and rising the missile velocity to the point that if you're on a big slow mech, warning, incoming, me, and you're already dead. You already took a shower and you lost 20% of your armor because of something that, I mean, you can't react. At least, you cannot say take cover because with the indirect fire, many times there isn't even cover. So by making LRMs slower overall, you make it so that if you have skill, you can move to cover and have a couple of extra seconds to move to cover. Other solutions that have been proposed and why they are nonsense. Indirect spread nerf. Some people want to, instead of nerfing the velocity, they would want to nerf the indirect spread. The problem is that it affects how LRMs hit different mechs. The way it is right now, if you take a direwolf and you LRM it in an indirect way, or you LRM a jumping urban mech, even if the direwolf has more, the king crab, the atlas, the whatever, has more armor, it will take longer to LRM the urban mech down to death because of spread. On small mechs, a lot of missiles miss already. And when you keep jump bugging and playing with jump jet animations, they miss even more. So by nerfing indirect spread, you're making those fast pseudolights completely LRM immune, or almost LRM immune. To make indirect spread have a minimum effect on those large assaults, you would need, we already tested it in the testing ground, you would need to nerf the spread by 2 points. So that out of an LRM 20, 3 missiles land on the terrain and don't hit the mech. But with such a big spread, those small mechs become LRM immune. So you would be forced to make just a minimum indirect spread nerf, and it would be completely useless because those mechs that are suffering the most because of LRMs wouldn't gain any benefit out of this. The other suggested nerf is the arc nerf. The problem is that you enhance the problem of the map design, because you create, by making the arc more flat, you make more objects viable as cover. But if then there are too many objects viable as cover, then it becomes a map problem because there is too much cover. So you are playing with a dangerous variable that I'd rather not touch. Damage nerf doesn't make sense, you just kill them. Heat nerf, again, doesn't make sense. You would need to nerf heat to the point that you can't use them on too many mechs. You are messing up with the base value and we would have to rework, retweak like hordes of mechs. It's a dangerous value. And again, this is supposed to be a support weapon. It is supposed to be decent on a mech that has like an LRM, an AC-20, some small lasers as a backup weapon. You can't increase heat too much on a backup weapon. It would either break the weapon or be a useless nerf. So in the end, the whole point here is increase diversity. Make the cancerous conditions less cancerous. So if you are learning less cancer, because you won't lose the lock instantly, you won't get spammed by multiple AMSs, the ECM won't be able to cover as many mechs as now, but if you are on the LRM receiving side, you won't get instantly hit by the LRMs because they will take more time to get to you. So you will have 2-3 extra seconds to maneuver and navigate to cover. My intention here is to start a discussion. I want you guys to comment. Let me know what you think. If you think this is a good idea, a bad idea, why. Comment, share the video, let me know. And if we have enough support from the community, maybe this idea could actually be implemented in the real game. I hope so, because it would make the game way better for everyone and reduce the cancerous situations overall. That's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the content. Remember to subscribe, share the content, and I'll catch you guys next time.